Go.
Okay. I am going to share my slides. And hello, everyone. Welcome to Grantseeking 101, otherwise known as How the Heck Did I Get a Grant?
That part.
We are part of PJP, People's Justice Project. Who is PJP, Aramis?
Nice question there, Emily. Well, briefly, the mission of PJP is to build the power of Black and Brown people, disproportionately impacted by state violence, mass criminalization, and incarceration by centering community organizing, civic engagement, and leadership development. We were founded in the summer of 15 to organize people affected by mass incarceration and police brutality into a political force. PJP has engaged in countless actions and achieved tangible victories for the community.
Nice. And thank you so much for being a part of this webinar with me today. My name is Emily Seraphy Cox. What's your name?
Oh yeah, my name is Aramis Sundiata. I am the Executive Director of the organization named as People's Justice Project.
Nice. Yeah. And I am going to talk today about grant seeking. Okay, so you introduced yourself with your name. Can you also say your pronouns and your organization? You said your organization, your location. Have you ever received a grant? And if so, what was one key to your success?
Yeah, so him. I'm based currently in Columbus, Ohio. Have I ever received a grant? Yes, I have. A few over the years. What was one key to your success? That's a hard question to answer. I would say because I feel like we're still trying to get there. But for the first one I ever wrote for, it was really believing that we could, you know, and when I received that first email, it gave me a little bit of confidence. Where, okay, this, whatever I'm writing is making sense. However, to be really transparent, I don't want this to be anything people who are taking this training to think too deeply about. But I do, in hindsight, when I look back on that, I know for sure if we did not have a few years of previous work that and really solidify what we do, it probably wouldn't have been the case. Probably would have been a little bit more difficult. But knowing that we had a good background of success and a background of how to do and what to do and for whom, the smaller details, the mission statements and things came after.
Yeah.
And then learning how to actually answer the questions in a way that made sense for grantors and realize I don't have that skill. So
so you yeah, I've heard you say many times you get the grant for the work that you've already done.
That part.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. My pronouns are she or they. And when I ask the question, have you ever received a grant? Of course, I don't mean me personally, myself, or you personally, yourself. Of course, we're talking about organizational grants here. And I have been a part of a team that has received grants, but when it was just me, myself, and I writing those grants, not so successful. And actually later on, sneak peek, you'll get a little window into Emily Seraphy Cox's writings from 15 years ago.
Buckle up.
Okay, so just some basics to like make sure we're all on the same page. There are different types of foundations. A community foundation, which is a foundation that is based in a community, usually has a geographic focus and raises money from the community to give out in grants, usually. So they tend to be a kind of first stop for a lot of organizations when they're starting out. A family foundation is very different. A family foundation is a lot what it sounds like. It's started by a family, a rich one usually, that wants to do good things with their money because they have too much of it. And usually family members are on the board, and there's a culture of like, as a part of our family, one of the things that you do to give back is you serve on the board and help us decide what to do about these grants and so forth. Sometimes there's an open application process with Family Foundation, but usually it's who you know. Corporate foundation, again, what it sounds like, money from a corporation. So name a big corporation, Aramis.
Well, you have Ben and Jerry's. You have
Ben and Jerry's, which is closing. So don't go applying for any applications with them because they're. But when they existed, they were indeed a corporate foundation. They were funded by the corporation that is Ben and Jerry's.
And then there's like Nike.
Uh-huh.
And then what's really interesting is that there's things you don't even think about. Like, I think I went for a long time ago, Raising Cane's has a type of foundation that I just happened to find. So you never really know who has them, but usually it's who you can think of for your, when you start searching for grants to write for.
Donor advised fund is a fund that is housed at another foundation. Usually it's like a community foundation or something like that. Although actually the largest foundation out there by money is Fidelity. And so they have set up all of these donor advised funds that are basically a way for people to do like their annual giving in a more organized or potentially even more anonymous fashion, rather than just like writing a check from your personal bank account. You put money into these donor advised funds, and then you can divvy out the money over time and yada yada yada. There's some problems with some of that, which is like all this money sitting around in these funds, not actually doing anything for the people. But, again, it's a little bit related to individual fundraising. We talked about this in the individual fundraising course, that these donor advised funds are decided on by the individual donors. So it's kind of like individual donor fundraising, but technically it is coming from a foundation. Intermediary. This is a relatively new term. An intermediary is a foundation that like raises money from other foundations to give out. So Borealis actually is an intermediary. They don't have an endowment of their own. Like the Ford Foundation, for instance, has an endowment. Just as one example. And independent foundation. An independent foundation is, oh my gosh, I had never heard of it before I looked it up, but it's like this, and I'm probably not going to explain it entirely correctly, but it's the idea that the foundation has become independent from the original founders. So, for instance, the Ford Foundation is actually a good example of this. It's not a family foundation anymore, even though it was founded by the family of the Fords, you know, the people who made all the cars, or the descendants of Henry Ford. But now most of the board, or if not the entire board of the Ford Foundation, is not made up of family members of the Ford family. So it has become independent from the family, even though it still holds the name Ford.
They must have drove them off.
But so this is the idea, right, of this follow the money kind of idea. Just, it's like digging. There's no one answer about how to get a grant. You gotta dig and build that knowledge base about how and where the money comes from. Okay. Now, foundations, just like most industries, have their own language. Grantee is the entity, organization that receives the grant. So as a grantee, you are receiving the grant from the foundation. The grantor is the foundation itself. Fiscal sponsorship. Fiscal meaning money, and sponsorship meaning like I'm going to vouch for you. So put that together and you have an organization that is vouching for another organization and sponsoring the stewarding of the money. The fiscal sponsor doesn't usually put money into an organization itself. Usually the fiscal sponsor just stewards the money through their organizational setup. And there are a variety of reasons why an organization might want a fiscal sponsor. Usually it's because they don't have nonprofit status, especially 501c3 status. For instance, PJP is a 501c4 organization, but we have a fiscal sponsor that is a 501c3 organization. So we can raise money like a 501c3 organization and have programs, 501c3 type programs, and also have our 501c4 status alongside that. That's a whole other conversation, whole other webinar. Annual report.
Oh.
We just came out with our annual report. It's very exciting, or are just about to come out with our annual report. It's a report that gets put together every year, annually, and a summary of what you did in the past year. It should absolutely be shared with funders. It should absolutely be shared with board members and individual donors. Anybody who cares about your organization should see your annual report. Award letter. When you get notification about a grant, sometimes you get it as an award letter. The award letter is not the grant itself. It's not the grant agreement itself. It is simply a notification that you are getting the grant.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not a contract in and of itself. However, it is an indication that your grant has been passed by the board of directors or whoever, is in charge of those decisions at the foundation, and that money is coming to you. Grant agreement. This is different. A grant agreement is actually something that you sign as the grantee, that you are agreeing to the following provisions as a part of receiving that grant. If you have a fiscal sponsor, though, you do not usually sign the grant agreement. Your fiscal sponsor signs the grant agreement. So they are taking on the legal liability in many cases for making sure that the grant agreement is followed. Letter of inquiry. This is, or LOI, this is not used quite as much as it used to be, because so many foundations have just gone to invite only. They don't even, allow people to send them letters of inquiry, but it's usually like a maybe 1.5 page letter outlining a request, basically. It's like a mini version of a grant application. Here's who we are. Here's why you should fund us. Here's what we do. And here's how much money we need. Funding cycle. Money goes in cycles. And foundations tend to plan out when they're going to give out grants. Some foundations give out grants once a year. Some foundations give out grants twice a year. Some foundations give out grants every single month. Those are amazing and rare. But most foundations give out, at least like individual funds, usually give out funding once or twice a year. And so then the key is to know when that grant cycle is happening, and to make sure that you are in contact with the foundation and get in your materials within the time frame to make sure that you are meeting deadlines for the funding cycle that you need. And you're not going to get the money right away. Even if you're granted the money, it's going to take months. This stuff moves slow.
Money flow is one thing I did learn from working over there with our previous parent organization. Is one that the ED did tell me something I never forgot. He said, the difference between receiving and money flow. And when he said that to me, I never forgot about it, because it was very, one of those things I've never forgotten him saying about money flow.
That it's one thing to say, oh, this money is on its way, and another thing to say, this money has arrived.
That part. Yeah.
Yeah. Grant guidelines. So these are like the rules for the grant, not the rules in terms of the grant agreement, like what you can do with the money and what you can't, no lobbying, whatever. This is more, we fund this type of organization, or we fund this type of work. We want to invest in girls of this age in the following zip codes who were in the foster care system. Something like that. Like, get very, very narrow in your grant guidelines. And you want to really pay attention to those grant guidelines, because they will tell you whether or not you should spend your time on this foundation. Lobbying. I just mentioned that sometimes in a grant agreement, there might be provisions around lobbying. While it is true that 501c3 organizations are allowed to do limited lobbying, many foundations are, in their grant provisions, say that you cannot use their money to do lobbying. So just make sure that if you are doing lobbying, that you have identified funding sources for it that are separate from grants that say you can't use their money for lobbying. Operating support. Operating support is like the best kind of grant. It is unrestricted. It is general operating. It is for anything that your organization needs it to be for. It means that the foundation is supporting your mission rather than this one piece of your work. Philanthropy is just a really fun and difficult to spell word that means the same thing as foundation or like people who give money. Technical assistance. Technical assistance is support that a foundation might provide that is not in the form of a grant. It is in the form of either information, like say this kind of webinar is like technical assistance, or is, you know, them helping you like hands-on help with certain things. And they can be very useful. And if they are offered as a part of your grant program, then take advantage of them 100%. Request for proposal. So this is different, a little bit different than grant guidelines. A request for proposal is that they are putting out a request out into the world saying, please send us proposals for this specific thing that we want to do. Sometimes that is for general things, but usually a request for proposal is for something far more narrow. This is just a few of the terms that exist in foundation speak. There is a much longer, more in-depth glossary that can be found here at the Council of Foundations, which there is the URL for that glossary. So if you are mystified about what something means, that can help you. Okay, so now, I don't know if you've noticed, but I have a little bit of a, you know, Sherlock Holmes, Nancy Drew theme going on with this presentation, just in case you hadn't noticed. So now we're going to talk about the key elements of effective grant seeking. 1, build a list of foundation prospects. Prospects? You mean I can't just build a list of foundations and then they're automatically going to fund me? No, you got to like cultivate them and understand them. It's kind of like dating, actually, now that I think about it. I hadn't thought about that before, but it's kind of like dating. So you want to have a list of foundations that are potentially good ones to talk to. They could be good ones to talk to because they're going to fund you, or they could be good ones to talk to because they might connect you to other foundations that would be good. So how do you find these foundations? Look for similar orgs, like organizations that do similar work to you, and look to see who funds them. It's a huge, huge way that people find foundations as prospects. There is something called the Foundation Database Online, and it is online, and you can pay for it if you really want to, but it's, in my opinion, it is far more expensive than any small nonprofit could possibly use it for. So I would recommend using the free access that is available at the Columbus Public Library. That being said, ye old Google search is also free and available from the comfort of your own home or office, and is actually very useful even just in itself. keyword, if you look up keywords like keywords from your mission statement, keywords of your programs, that kind of thing, and then the word foundation. Also look at foundation partnerships. So the foundations love to talk to each other and to partner with each other to make sure that they're all aligned and doing things, in alignment. They like the word alignment. And so they enter into these foundation partnerships. For instance, there's a partnership called Just Funders, or something like that, that is all funders who are committed to funding justice. Seems good. In addition to that, there are partnerships around many other different things like youth organizing, or there's grant makers for girls of color. There's foundation partnerships around environmental issues. There's, anything that you can imagine almost, there's probably a funder partnership organized around it. So you can find the lists of those foundations on those websites. Once you have your prospect list, you got to build relationships. Yes. When I first talked about this webinar, I talked about it as a, grant writing, grant seeking webinar. And so people imagine that it's going to mostly be about how to write the grant. But the grant actually is the very last thing that you do, because in order to get through the door, to even have your grant considered, or to get through the door to have your grant be competitive, you have to really understand where the foundation is coming from, the people behind the foundation, who they're currently funding, all of that sort of thing, and be known to the people reading your application. They have to already understand who you are and what you do before they even get your paper. I mean, there are some foundations where that is not necessary. However, it is always helpful. Allied organizations are stupendous. So there are many foundations out there that love to see, most foundations out there love to see partnerships. And so being real about what your partnerships are and having a breadth and a depth with those partnerships is important. Those partnerships also can be ways of opening doors with funders. What about organizations in other locations? I think I already talked about that. So organizations that like do your similar kind of work but are in other locations. Clearly, I spent more time on the picture on this slide than I did on the words. I can't hear what you're saying.
I just want to add one thing for the folks here. I know Emily's camera seems to be kind of strange because all you see is half of her face. So I'm just going to suggest that you move your camera. There you go. And there we go. So
thank you for letting me know.
Word.
It did not show up that way on my side. So thank you. Okay. So once you get a list of prospects, you have to figure out which of these prospects is the priority. In the individual donor prospect webinar, we talked about ability. All of these foundations have the ability. That's why they exist, is to give out money. So that's fine. Ability, it was ABC. Do I even remember it? The C was connection. I just talked about connection. Can you actually get in the door with the foundation? And then the B, belief. So how well aligned, again, I'm sorry, my computer is reminding me about a meeting that I'm not going to. How well aligned are you with what this foundation wants to do? So the funding here's another foundation speak word, funding criteria, kind of the same thing as grant guidelines. So look at each foundation carefully. What do they say about who they fund? They might say some really confusing things, or they might say some really clear things like, we prioritize the following geographic places. If you are not in one of those geographic places, you might still potentially be a possibility for them, but it's not a hot prospect. So probably downgrade its priority in terms of, moving forward with it. Look at, again, who their grantees are. So one way is to look at organizations and see who funds them. Then once you've got that list of foundations, look at all of the other grantees from that foundation and see, do they fund organizations like mine? Are they funding, let's say we're a health organization. Are they a foundation that's funding community health programs? Or are they a foundation that is funding hospitals? Very different things, right? So if your program is health related and they say we believe in health and you might think that's great. But if you look at the grantee list and you realize they're not giving to any small organizations, they only care about giving to gigantic hospitals and like universities for research and so forth, might not be your jam. So it's perfectly ordinary to be picky, darling. I just imagine, I don't know why this woman would say that. Maybe she would. She certainly looks like she's being picky with that book. But the idea is, don't waste your time with funders who aren't a good fit. And if you do want to get connected with those funders, be clear about why. Maybe it's that you want them to introduce you to somebody else. But when you're prioritizing your prospect list, you really want to prioritize the foundations that have the most alignment with your work. Okay, so this is us doing an example. Are you ready for our example, Aramis?
I am.
Exciting. Okay, I need to go over to the other window. So we are going to look at this foundation, the Hidden Leaf Foundation, to see if it is a good fit for People's Justice Project. This actually is a foundation we haven't yet looked at. So this is live right now. You are seeing it in action. So the Hidden Leaf Foundation is dedicated to promoting inner awareness within liberatory movements. Okay. We also care about liberatory movements. Our work, we envision a future of joy, love, justice, and collective liberation. We all have a role to play in bringing about this future, starting with how we show up today. When we cultivate inner awareness and tend to the spiritual as well as the strategic, the power we build with others and the changes we engender are deeper, more lasting, and more likely to heal the injustices that shape our current relationship to the earth and to each other. What do you think so far, Aramis?
I think it's fantastic.
Seems like maybe a possibility for PJP's work.
Yes.
I mean, look, those are some power fists.
Yes.
So now we look more specifically at their grants. Hidden Leaf is investing in shared power, prosperity, and collective consciousness for the sake of human and planetary flourishing. As a movement partner, we make deep long-term investments in our grantees, and we aim to use a broad array of investment and financial tools to move money towards the people, organizations, and movements, advancing a more just, verdant, and loving world. I don't actually even know what verdant means. We are also committed to bringing transformative approaches to our peers in philanthropy. That means that they are trying to push other foundations to be more like them. Okay. They're hiring a director of finance and operations. Looks like they have a new executive director. So they've been going through some changes. So let's see here. I'm not sure. Giving Shumi. I think that this is like really specific, like it looks like it's a more specific fund within their work. So let's click on grants and investments and see what they're doing here. Okay, transformative change, inner awareness, prioritize this approach because we believe yada yada. Okay, long-term funding commitment. We do not accept unsolicited proposals. So we can't just go on their website and submit a grant. This is evidence of needing to build a relationship, as I said. So here is a list of kind of the guidelines. So our grantee organizations are building political, economic, cultural, and spiritual power and deepening environmental justice for the sake of a more liberatory future for people and for the planet. PJP doesn't necessarily focus on environmental justice, so that's maybe an indication that this might not be a top prospect for us. But let's keep reading. Anchoring the depths. I love that that's what they bolded. By practicing the world they seek and cultivating reflective liberatory cultures as a core element of their work. Okay, that's about how we approach our work in deep relationship with others. How can you do community organizing any other way? Explicitly prioritizing racial justice and a commitment to a just transition. This just transition phrase here, especially because it is capitalized, that is a just transition from like environmental extraction to, transitioning ourselves into like renewable energy and all that kind of idea, but in a way that is just and not only for rich people. So this sounds like it is very firmly an environmental justice funding organization. They're looking for organizations with budgets in the range of $8 million or less. Checked. Definitely less than $8 million. And apparently they also have a complete grant making strategy. Oh my goodness. This is a much longer organization. Much longer document. So and apparently there's a comment on it from 2024. Multiple. So this is the sort of document that I would go through if I was really digging in to see if this, if I had decided I was going to like move forward with contacting this foundation or prioritizing this foundation, I would dig in here to see like what really do they care about, so I can make sure to emphasize those parts of my work and so forth. However, even just from this kind of more cursory level here, I can see that while it's true that PJP, has been involved in some things that touch on environmental justice, it's not at the core of what we do every day. and probably would not be one of our top prospects. Do you agree with that assessment, Aramis, or do you have further thoughts?
No, I think you're spot on. Definitely think you're spot on.
Yeah. Sorry, anything else that you want to share about it?
Nope.
Okay, cool. All right. So, Hidden Leaf Foundation, probably not our best bet. But that's okay, because it is just one of many, many, many foundations out there. But it might be a good foundation to get in touch with around, like, everything except the environmental justice piece seemed really aligned with PJP's work. So they might be in partnerships with other foundations that could be more aligned. Okay, so this then was going to be an exercise for you to do at home. For not you, Aramis, we already did ours. For you, the viewer, to do at home. Look up the Peace Development Fund and see, do you think that this foundation is a good fit for your organization? I picked this foundation in part because I used to work there, but also because it is a foundation that has an open application every single year, so anybody can apply for it. It focuses on small organizations, and it has no particular issue focus. Its focus is more about how you're approaching the work, and the fact that you're working for justice, and also focuses on, okay, no, I'm not going to tell you the answer. Got to go on the website and see it for yourself. But it potentially is something for, especially organizations that are just starting out to look at. So peacedevelopmentfund.org, I think, is the website. Okay, so by the time that you have selected the foundation that or multiple foundations that you want to focus on, you've developed the relationships, you've looked at the website, you've seen when their funding cycle is happening, and let's say that you either have been invited to put in an application or you're applying for a foundation that has an open application process. Now you need to write the grant. Ooh. But don't spend all your time on this. Like I said, it is more important to have the relationship, to have the understanding, all of that, than it is to write the perfect grant. However, follow the directions. I can't tell you. I used to work at the Peace Development Fund. I read grants. I can't tell you how many grants I received that didn't follow the directions. It was, it made it hard to consider the application because here we asked for you to tell us about your partnerships, and you told us about everything but. And so it sounds like you're doing great work, but one of our guidelines is you need to have partnerships or something like that. And so we don't actually have all the information we need to decide on your grant. And actually, the more common one was that people didn't follow directions for how to submit their financial information. So that's actually why I pair this webinar with the previous one on budgeting and bookkeeping. And we talk there about the different types of financial reporting that are needed for grants and funders. So follow the directions. And you know what? Ask questions if you don't know. Sometimes the foundation isn't going to answer, but they also, like at the Columbus Public Library, they have a like nonprofit development center, I forget what it's called, down at the main library. That can be a really good resource. Like have somebody there look at your financial statements or your budget or something like that and be like, okay, here are the, here's what I'm supposed to submit. Is that what this is? Like those kinds of things. Because I am certain that you didn't go into community work or community organizing because you love to put together a budget. I mean, I happen to love to put together a budget, but that's not why I went into community work. And I would say the majority of the people that I know who went into community work are actually not that great at putting together the budgets, right? So it's okay. You don't have to be good at everything. That's why there are people out there to help us. Within your grant, yes, have statistics, have numbers, all of that, but stories, paint the picture, paint a tangible picture of your work. Yes, I see Aramis saying yes, because the person reading your grant is probably not the first grant that they read that day or that week or that month. It was probably the 5th grant they read that day, or maybe the 15th grant they read that day, and the 50th grant they read that week, and the 500th grant they read that month. Like, think about what they are going to have to process, right? So, clear writing is so much better than smashing every idea into your grant. Being as clear as possible about, as I said, painting that picture, helping them to imagine what goes on at your events, what goes on in your office, or what goes on at whatever type of work you're doing, how you are making change with people. And then this is actually a hot tip from from somebody that we work with on grants, which is try not to spend more than 1 hour per $1,000 of the grant. So if it's a $10,000 grant, do not spend more than 10 hours on that grant, please, because, sorry, that's my dog. No fucking. Because you are worth more than that, and your work is worth more than that. So don't spend all of your time on this part. Okay. Now we're going to look at a sample grant application from this organization called Empower San Diego, which is an organization that I used to be the main person at. I called myself an executive director, but that's just because there was nobody else on staff at the organization. It was me and the board and a bunch of student volunteers. Okay, so this is from 2009. So this is a letter of inquiry that I sent to the David Bonnet Foundation, or maybe it's Bonnet, I don't know. So I'll just read the first bit here. Empower San Diego is a 501c3 nonprofit that works to advance progressive values and foster local civil society by promoting civic participation and facilitating collaboration among community-based organizations. That was our mission statement. So be really upfront with your mission statement. To realize our mission, we use voter registration and education, public dialogue, grassroots leadership development, and coalition building. So the big buckets of what we did. We envision, here's our vision, a society where individuals and families have support and opportunities to thrive, communities are livable and accessible, government is transparent and accountable, and independent media flourishes. We can all dream. Empower San Diego respectfully requests, and here is what we're asking for, $15,000 from the David Bonet Foundation to support our voter engagement projects. So it's very specific to our voter engagement projects, Empower Students, and Civic Matters, which apparently was the name of a program. I don't remember that program, but clearly I wrote this. So, and then I listed out what the goals of those programs will be. So use student, intern, volunteer teams to build a network of engaged student groups at high schools, community colleges, and universities to organize around the 2010 general elections and serve as a base for the growing local progressive community. I was so young and hopeful. Engage students and newcomer/immigrant populations in the 2010 general elections in collaboration with local coalitions. You'll see later that I don't have super specifics about how that's going to happen, so I didn't do a good job of painting the picture. Impact local redistricting efforts to ensure our elected bodies are more diverse, more representative, and more responsive to the communities they serve. So those were the overarching goals. Aramis, would you fund this?
I haven't seen the problem in how you're going to do this yet, so I need to see that.
So you're not sure? Okay, let's keep going. Would you keep reading?
Honestly,
yeah.
If I read 5 grants by then, it would have sounded very generic.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It was not very well, right? It wasn't painting the picture. Hopefully I have improved in the intervening 15 years. 17 years. So the problem, San Diego needs grassroots organizing. It's been known as a conservative community. It was Enron by the sea, if anybody remembers that. High poverty, majority Latino, African-American, newcomer student and young populations. You know, here's where they are. That's the problem. Timing is crucial. We have anticipated low participation in the census, charter reform ballot initiatives, initiation of local redistricting efforts. Here I get a little bit more specific. So that's the problem. We had a very diverse region and the government was crappy. Actually, at the time, in 2009, San Diego was one of 2 or maybe 3 major cities who had Republican mayors. Majority non-white city that had a Republican mayor. Okay, so here's a bit about, you know, what we did and our accomplishments. We got our house in order. That was an accomplishment. We had Meet Your Candidates mixer. We started Empower Students, which honestly was one of the most successful programs of that organization. This organization is defunct now, by the way. Gee, I wonder why. We said that we were going to advocate participation in the US census. We didn't really say how. But I did have some goals here, or like objectives that were more specific. So expand the Empower Students team by 5 interns. That is a good specific objective. But everything else far less specific. Develop a civic engagement curriculum and training schedule for interns. That is like a task to develop a schedule. Curriculum maybe, but what did we say at the beginning? They will fund you for what you have already done. So why haven't you already developed this curriculum? Yeah, I don't feel like we proved in this letter of intent that we actually had the capacity to do what we said we were going to do. Now, just, spoiler alert, we didn't get this grant. We did not get invited to submit a proposal. And I did continue to have the Empower Students program, and it, as I said, was one of the most successful programs that I had, developing, young leaders and augmenting the fact that we were one part-time staff person. But really, the most successful thing that this organization ever did was this local redistricting coalition. So about a year and a half after I wrote this and submitted it, we entered into a local redistricting process, and I facilitated this redistricting coalition. So thank goodness we got like a little bit of funding along the way to keep that going, because otherwise the political landscape of San Diego would actually look really different than it does today, because they were adding another council district. So they were like dividing the pie more differently that redistricting cycle than they had in the previous 60 years, and probably will into the future for another 60 years. So it laid the groundwork for the balance of power in San Diego writ large. And I did it on a shoestring. But after that, then people took me seriously. When I hadn't done that yet, people didn't so much take me seriously. Yeah. Okay. So that is the failed letter of intent. So we poked some holes at it. We saw some good things, some clear writing, and some not clear writing. So what's next? So the recordings of all of the webinars, all 3 that I mentioned, the individual fundraising, the budgeting and bookkeeping, and this one, will be sent to you via email, will be emailed to you. And it will also be on our YouTube. And then we are starting our Organizing Revival Fellowship in June, and we would love to have you join us. So reach out to me, Emily, at ohiopjp.org, and we can set up a call to discuss what your organization's doing, what the Organizing Revival Fellowship is, what PJP is doing, how we can work together, all of that stuff. That'll be great. I think that's the end. Ah, thank you. Thank you, Aramis, for coming along with me.
Always.
Any last kernels of wisdom for our viewers?
Wisdom. What? Yo. Yeah, so that was fantastic. The only thing I would only add was, again, don't overthink it. To Emily's point about spending 1 hour per $1,000. A lot of the things that are holding you back is in your head.
Mm.
And again, to when she was discussing your relationships, I can't stress enough that people will help you if you ask them, and they will be honest if they know what they're doing. Now, when I say that, I mean, seek out the people that have what you want and be humbled by their honesty, and take it as a step forward, because you're not going to get what you want unless you humble yourself and trust the process indeed, but listen, because once you get your first, you're going to get more confident, and then I said to Emily earlier, doors open to you that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
But always use your relationships. I want to say one more thing. If I did not think to myself, who do I talk to? I wouldn't be able to do it by myself. You got to have community around you, and they'll hold you down. And I'm forever grateful for those people, and they're still around. And as we've grown, they have definitely saluted it, like, yo, because they also know where we started. And so yes, that's all I can say. But I don't want to give any names, but
But you know who you are, so thank you.
You know who you are. If you're probably not watching this because you already, I'll probably see you in Chicago Sunday. But they're definitely people who help you out.
Yeah.
And get over yourself too. For real. Get over yourself.
Get over yourself. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Word.